Hello and good evening, I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Let's start with news that the former appeals court judge V.C. George, he has urged the Dewan Negara to reconsider amendments to the road transport bill, which is aimed at curbing driving under the influence of alcohol. Now, these amendments were passed by the Dewan Rakyat on the 26th of August and will be tabled in the upper house later this week. The amendments seek to toughen existing sentences through a higher fine of up to 150,000 ringgit and a jail term of more than 20 years, as well as the suspension of the driver's license. Now, according to V.C. George, these amendments take away the discretion of judges in determining the punishment to be meted out.
I'm going to say it's a very interesting argument that the judge, puts forth in the public realm. I think because so often the discussion has been driven by rather emotive arguments. Yes. We've had, of course, some really tragic cases of drunk driving leading to death. Nevertheless, we need to look at the issues more squarely. And I think what V.C. George points to is the problem of mandatory sentencing. Now, we have had mandatory sentencing in, say, with drug offences. Again, people might think this is not a really important issue because maybe we all have the consensus that, these are heinous crimes and need to be punished. But and this is what V.C. George really points out, is that when you take away the ability of a judge to use their discretion, to use their sense of the nature of the crime and the proportion in terms of punishment, then we're on a slippery slope, really, towards kind of executive control of the judicial system.
That's precisely what he's saying, that having mandatory sentencing really ties the hands of a judge to I guess demonstrate discretion when sentencing, when meting out sentences. V.C. George says that one of the roles of the judiciary is to provide a check and balance to the executive, and if there are excesses, for them to make that discretion. But when you have these higher punishments, higher jail time, you tie the hands of the judge, in each case. So for them to make the discretion in each case. And I think it's quite interesting that V.C. George said that the Dewan Rakyat was misled into supporting the proposed amendments in respect to drink driving or even drug-related cases by the suggestion that there were significant increases of the type of offences. He reckons that perhaps this is one of the reasons why there was, an overwhelming support for these amendments. Yeah,
in fact, the media played a very interesting role in that period, I think, leading up to the discussion about amendments to the law, including playing up these cases as if, we had kind of a plague of drink driving cases resulting in death. And so,
if I may just give some numbers to that. So in June, consumer rights activist Deepak Gill, he highlighted that based on government statistics, it showed that from the years 2011 to 2019, there were 47 drink driving related road deaths in Malaysia. This is out of 55,000 cases that involved road fatalities. Yeah,
so again, it's the way the media frame this, the kind of emotive language that's used, politicians obviously riding on this bandwagon. I think nobody would deny the fact that people have to be responsible when they drink. They're drink driving, and we see this around the world. There are stiff punishments for drink driving, and there are many options today for people to find alternative ways of transport if they are decided to drink. But the fact that we now have a law that takes away the discretion of judges in sentencing, it's terrible when you consider that there's been such a strong move to return the discretionary powers of judges in the cases of many drug offences, because we've seen the appalling consequences of shackling the judiciary in making those kinds of decisions. So the consequence of this, I think, is what V.C. George is pointing to.
Well, something for us to consider as well as Dewan Negara when these amendments are tabled this week. All right, moving on to other news. Former Law Minister Datuk Sri Nazri Aziz yesterday expressed his scepticism over the youth-centric party, Malaysian United Democratic Alliance, or better known as MUDA, that's led by Syed Saddiq Abdul Rahman. In a recent interview, Nazri Aziz branded Syed Saddiq as, to quote him, naive and not mature. And Nazri claimed that Saddiq's victory in the last general elections were largely due to the prevalent sentiment against Barisan Nasional at the time. Now, if I may quote him in this interview, Nazri Aziz said that Syed Saddiq, won not because of him being a youth leader, it was that tied against BN at the time. Now, if you fielded a donkey, that donkey would have won too. This is in a recent interview. In response to those comments, Syed Saddiq said that he believes those disparaging remarks had helped boost membership for Muda, which received some 7,000 applications within 12 hours.
Okay, Melissa, where do we start? Nazri Aziz is, of course, one of the more colourful
well, he doesn't hold
MPs.
back, does he?
No, he doesn't hold back. I mean, he's like a Bog Mokhtar. But, you know, the point, of course, is whether his criticisms really land in terms of, you know, the reasons that he gives. Whether or not also, you know, his particular criticisms and the tone, I think, that he took resulted in people being so incensed that they would want to join the party Muda. I'm not sure whether that causal relationship can be made.
Well, we don't know for sure, but I think what it does is that it highlights this kind of the feeling of being dismissed. Again, you know, I think a lot of young people feel that their concerns are dismissed and not taken, you know, not taken to heart. And, you know, this kind of comments, again, very dismissive, very, I think reflects perhaps the...
Yeah, they're dismissive, no doubt.
Yes.
But the question, of course, is whether that...
It holds water?
That particular news report then led 7,000 young people to sign up is another matter altogether. But coming back to some of the arguments that Nazri Aziz makes, and he quotes, interestingly enough, to Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, who, of course, was Syed Saddiq's mentor in politics, saying that, you know, one of the big problems of this party is that it's going to exclude old people. Of course, we know that's not true. That's been clarified. It's a youth-led party. There's no question of older people not being allowed in.
What I thought was particularly interesting also is Nazri Aziz said that not only does it exclude old people, but not all youth will support a youth party, which is true. Not all youth will support a youth party, and not all old people will not support a youth party.
Yeah, so the question is, of course, you know, what exactly is the appeal of this particular party? It claims to be a disruptor. You know, it points to many of the really bad practices in our political culture and, you know, in the practices of our political elite.
Right.
It also, I think, makes note that, you know, in some ways, the younger people, younger Malaysians, are much more inspired to change the country. Many older people are much more cynical about the possibility of change. So maybe I would concede that these are just the givens in Malaysian politics. Syed Saddiq and many people who are joining him saying, no, this is not necessarily going to be the case for the future of Malaysia, and they want to change it.
For sure. All right, so now we're going to keep a close eye on the developments and the responses that those within the political sphere have to this new entrant to the political scene. However, we're going to take a quick break first here on Consider This. After this, we will be speaking to the coordinator of the Pulang Mengundi Sabah initiative. That's all coming up in just a few minutes. Stay tuned.
Against COVID-19 is still on. It is our responsibility to adhere to all the regulations set by our Ministry of Health. We are in the era of a new norm. Face masks, social distancing, and also hand hygiene are just basics. We can do this together, and let's not take it by our Ministry of Health. We are in the era of a new norm.
is still out there. Let's do our part in following the SOPs in place so that we can break the transmission. Follow the 3 C's. Avoid close conversations, avoid crowded spaces, and avoid confined spaces. We can beat this together.
The war on COVID-19 is not over. We should not take this lightly. Let us ensure all steps are taken to avoid the spread of the virus, be it social distancing, hand hygiene, and wearing of the face mask. It's a new norm. Let's not slack. We can do this.
We've done great so far.
Hi, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me is Sharaad Kuttan. Now, hashtag Pulang Mengundi Sabah is an initiative to help Sabahan voters living outside the territory to return to cast their ballot in the state election this weekend. Now, this is a volunteer-run campaign. It was launched only last month, but has so far received close to 6,000 applications. It's crowd-funded more than 75,000 ringgit, which will allow some 215 voters to return to Sabah. Joining us on the show tonight, we have Denison. He's a co-coordinator of Pulang Mengundi Sabah. Aaron, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. So begin a little bit with the backstory to this initiative. How did this initiative come to be, and how did you come to be involved in it?
So it's basically started when our friend, who is from Sabah, she's from Tawau, Zaria, she texted me the night when the EC announced the date of the election, the state elections. And then she said, we should do something that you did 2 years ago, which was Pulang Mengundi Mahasiswa during GE14. Then I said, okay, I mean, I had a similar thought as well after the announcement. So wait, let me sleep on it first, because it's a big thing that we're going to do. So let me sleep on it first. And then when I woke up the next day, I said, yeah, let's do it. So that's why I gathered Zaria, and I also gathered 2 of my friends who were involved in the GE14 Pulang Mengundi Mahasiswa as well. And then we sort of gathered the few other young students from UMS, and also from UKM to sort of join our initiative.
Did you at that point initially understand just how big the scale of how many people wanted to return? Did you have a sense of actually this is an issue that a lot of people want to go home and vote, but they are not able to?
So I mean, when we were discussing in the group, I mean, some of them called me, "You're crazy, man. I mean, you're gonna send how many people?" And then one of our members said, "Bro, if we send 1 people, it still makes a difference." So that's how it all started. And then we weren't expecting to get as much as 6,000 applications, because initially when we didn't open the Google form yet, we had only like 10 applications. And then once we opened the Google form, and that's where it became like, it basically, you know, exploded.
Right, but okay, tell us a little bit what you understand is the magnitude of the problem. I understand you're looking primarily at the peninsula. You're also looking at Sabahans in Sarawak, or what are the limits, and what are the actual numbers of potential voters in the other 2 territories who might want to return to Sabah?
So at the moment, at that time, you were only thinking of Peninsula. And then eventually when we looked and started reading the applications, we said, okay, maybe there's also a need for Sarawak as well. And that somehow we sort of roped in and said, okay, let's also consider Sarawak as well. And in terms of the number of voters, or at least Sabahans in Peninsula, I mean, I think the EC announced there were at least 200,000 voters in Peninsula, Sabahan voters in Peninsula. So at that time, when we started reading the statistics, then we said, oh, okay, this is a lot. And how are we going to, I mean, if we're going to get this much of people, how are we going to manage them? But we set an initial target, which was only about, we were thinking of sending only about 25 people back.
Modest target. Very modest.
And also insignificant statistically to shape any kind of outcome. I mean, was that you're surely aware of that. I mean, is that something that bothered you? I know you said 1 person is good enough.
Yeah.
But that's wonderful and symbolic and all that. But really, if it's not significant, why do it?
I mean, one thing was because we wanted to show the Sabahan youths who are in Peninsula that voting does matter. And I believe that everyone is fatigued by what has happened. Sheraton move. I mean, what happened in Sabah. So we don't want young people to get fatigued. And number 3, I believe it was important for us young people to send out a message to 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are going to vote in the next elections. Although it's not gazetted yet, but once they start to vote, I mean, they should think that we should inspire them and say that, no, you shouldn't be tired of voting. It should be your responsibility.
Well, it's quite remarkable that if your initial target was 25, that, you know, now you're able to send 114, 15 people home to vote. Now, that's quite, congratulations on raising that money. That's quite interesting. What strikes me is that, you know, initially when you thought of this idea, you didn't realize that you'd be getting 1,000 applicants, and of those applicants, you had to streamline a few, right? And because you had conditions. Can you tell us more about that?
So we had a criteria. I mean, we had a long discussion about the criteria because we knew we were going to get some backlash. The first criteria was we consider funding those who aged between 21 to 35 years old. And
so you had a strict age limit.
Strict age limit, yes. We were ageist, but not so ageist. And then the second criteria is we will fund those who have a salary lower than 3,000 ringgit.
Okay.
So it was means tested and there's an age limit. Okay.
Yep. And third, of course, they have to be registered under the SPR website as well. So.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the people, because I understand that you asked them for actually quite intimate details, their financial status, and then people volunteered other information about themselves as well. They told stories about themselves.
Yes, I mean, okay, yeah, those were sad stories that we heard. I mean, we basically got like grassroots issues through emails. For example, we had one person he sent us his salary slip. When we looked at it, it was 500 ringgit. For me, it was very emotional. I couldn't focus the whole day. I felt that, we have a lot of people here, and being a young people, I'm so fortunate to where I am at now. And then for us to read those kind of stories, and then we also had a single mother who sort of just got divorced. She sent us her divorce certificate, saying that, I need this money, I need to go back, and I need to bring my daughter back home. So those were the grassroots stories that we got. And when we realized that were the grassroots stories, we decided, okay, let's up the numbers now. We need to up our game and try to push for more crowdfunding.
I don't mean to sound cynical, but maybe it's my role. Have you ever considered fraud? Is this something that is in your mind, the back of your mind, that people might be making these stories up in order to get a bit of a handout?
Yeah, but once we got, the salary slip, once we got the letter, there are people who didn't send their documents and just say, oh, I want to vote. They just send their SPR slip and they say, oh, I'm eligible to vote, but there was no salary slip. So when that happened, we said, okay, maybe we should put them aside for a while.
Okay, well, then walk me through the process, because 6,000 applicants, you whittled it down to about 3,000 plus eligible applicants. And then you have now 15 people that you can send home. How, Aaron, are you going to pick from the 3,000 eligible applicants?
So, like you said, 6,000 applications, and then we did a first screening set, like a first sifting process, and we brought it down to 3,441. Those were the ones registered as voters, and then we basically streamlined those who had documents, their salary slip, as well as the salary slip. So, and then after that, we got to about 1,000, where fit all the criteria. And then the team decided the final criteria of how we're going to select them is based on the lowest salary. So the lowest salary until up to 3,000 ringgit. Okay. And to be honest, we haven't exceeded 2,200 ringgit.
Wow. So the 200 over applicants that you're sending home do not earn up to 2,000 ringgit, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Aaron, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and continue this conversation about Pulang Mengundi Sabah. Stay tuned to Consider This. Thank you so much for staying with Sharaad and I on Consider This. Let's continue our conversation with Aaron Denison, co-coordinator of Pulang Mengundi Sabah. Aaron, so congratulations on you and the team raising 75,000 ringgit crowdfunded.
Yeah, I believe the applications are open still. For receiving money, donors can still send money until tomorrow?
Yes, they can send their money until tomorrow, and our latest figures that I checked just now, we have passed 100,000 ringgit.
Oh, wow.
So which means we might be able to send at least 250 people back home now.
Okay.
Right, so there's a really big funder out there.
That's great.
And I believe one of the largest funders put down 10,000 ringgit. Right, so there's really generous folks out there who want to support this initiative. There's still time.
Well, Aaron, so is it really expensive? I mean, when you think about the cost to send voters home to Sabah to cast their ballot, what does it cover? How much are you looking at per voter?
Like if you go to MAS, on their website or Asia, you need at least 600 ringgit. Two ways. But we managed to speak to an airline where they gave us a flat rate of 400 ringgit, 2 ways, 20 kilo luggage plus 7 kg hand carry. So that's a great rate. For me, I feel that's a great rate. And in terms of the negotiation with the airline, it was back and forth. Okay. It took us like 1.5 weeks for us to finally convince them. Please, I had to beg, and I had to convince them.
What kind of arguments did you use to this kind of corporate player that moved them to actually agree?
We were straight up with them on how much do the people are flying earning, basically. How much are they earning? Not a lot of them earn above 2,200 ringgit. So it's 2,200 ringgit and below. So when I said that, they sort of said, okay, I understand now. And then I also said that we haven't crowdfunded enough, so we hope to crowdfund more. We want to send as many as we can, so that's why you need to cap the price so that we can send as many as
Aaron, how do you keep initiatives like this, which started from organically grassroots level, how do you keep it from becoming partisan? How do you keep it from being hijacked by political agendas, by political parties who want to bring voters back to vote for them?
So we have had requests from both sides of the divide. In terms of when they said, do you need funding? But how much do you think they are on our side? But from the start, we were clear that we were non-partisan. We said individuals can donate, but not a certain political party. So that's where we drew the line. But
why not? If a political party says we'll put down 20,000, but and not interfere in the selection of the person, meaning the person doesn't have to come with some party affiliation or a promise to vote for X, Y, or Z, why not take that money?
If they come to the table and say, we're giving you this money, just send them home. We don't want them to know. We don't want to know who are they voting for. That's fine. We're fine with that. But there's always the perception where some political parties will come and then they will put down the money and then they held you at your neck and say, this is what you should do. So that's always the fear for me and also for the team as well.
Okay. And I know Sharaad asked you about what kind of impact you might see, whether this will at all move the needle in any which way. But what do you want to see come out from this campaign? We're less than 5 days, about 5 days away, right, from polling day. What would be for you the intentions behind this? What would be the intended impact?
A message to the young people. Do not give up. Basically, a lot of stories that I've heard, everyone saying, "Oh, why is this happening?" Our vote is not even taken seriously. But I want to continue saying that no, this is where your voice is heard at the ballot, and this is where our rights are given. This is our democratic right. It's been given to us through the Constitution. It's a responsibility. Not everyone have the privilege to vote. We didn't have to go through what the United States went through. They had the black weren't allowed to vote and everything. All of us, we had our rights just after independence. Everyone, regardless, of our race. So that's something they need to keep in mind every time when they feel that you need to boycott, don't vote. So. Yeah.
Okay, Aaron, there's something that troubles me, right? All this is wonderful work. But if the Election Commission had done a very simple thing of allowing voters from Sabah to vote in the peninsula or vote in Sarawak, in the territories where they live and work, then we wouldn't have this problem. And in fact, so many more people would be voting who don't live in the territory. Do you see this, and I clearly see it, as a failure on the part of the Elections Commission to do its job?
I would say failure. I would say that this is our statement to them. Why basically we're doing this is to show that many people want to go back and vote, but they can't afford it. Only certain people can do it. So this sort of gives them an indication that they need to then allow Sabahans to vote in Peninsula. at this time. And even for the next few elections, like Sarawak, for example, they need to think about it.
Right, so this can be kind of a template to see how it goes. And if I may be a cynic as well, how do you, respond to accusations that this is just people who want a free ride home?
Yes, a lot of people told us, I mean, even our funders said, how do you think that they will actually go back and vote? I mean, that is beyond our control. I mean, we know based on the stories that we have read, I mean, we have a team that have basically worked day and night, I mean, 4 a.m. in the morning, using our weekends. We all have our day jobs, but this is our night job. So, I mean, we trust them. I trust the team.
Trust principle.
Yes, trust principle. So, yeah, we can't control it, but we hope that they go back and vote. That's all.
There's also another thing. I understand that not everybody wants to go back and vote, and that COVID is playing a particular role. Could you give us some sense of the fear that you sensed from talking to all these people about whether they should go back?
So we started calling them on Saturday. I mean, telling that, yeah, you have been selected, you have a flight back home. And a few of them said, I don't think I want to go back because even the young people, my parents said I should just stay where I am because the situation in Sabah is not looking good. I mean, those were the challenges that we thought that, oh, okay, maybe the election is not going to happen. But at the same time, we felt that we always tell them, as long as you follow the SOPs, that's the best we can do. As long as you follow the SOPs, practice social distancing, and then we even consider buying them masks at the airport when they are leaving. So, I mean, those are the things that we can do, but we just hope that they upheld to all the SOPs.
Very quickly, as we wrap up the show, for those who are listening, who are watching, who want to help, how can they?
So we have our bank account on our Facebook as well as on our Twitter. So just bank in whatever amount you can. No small, no big amount. We had the smallest amount we had was 18 ringgit from a student, which was very touching, and the largest was 10,000 ringgit. So no small amount. Just donate to us.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you so much, Aaron. Good luck with the good work that you and your team are doing.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck.
That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, folks. Good night.